Namaskar and welcome to this exciting show of Sattology debunking mythology. We have amazing guests with us. You loved their shows, you loved their talks in the past, and today with such a wide audience has come on a Tuesday morning. And for the West Coast people, I'm on the West Coast too. It's 7:22 in the morning, which is very early. For the East Coast, it's your good time. But still, winters are on. Keep yourself warm. Stay inside. COVID-19 has still not gone away. Oh, I was not supposed to say that. Sorry. But uh, keep yourself happy. But in this show today, we're going to cover historicity of Ramayana from a different angle, from the Sugriva's point of view, and from other travelers from Ramayana. And we all know, we have seen in other shows that how Ramayana has a global impact more than any other scripture of India. So with that, we get on. We invite Sri D.K. Hari and Hema Hari. Namaskar.
Namaste. Namaste.
Namaste, Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna. So how do we? So first of all, in Ramayana, when we see that Bhagwan Ram asks Sugriva, how does he know all the places of the world? And Sugriva replies that because he was running away from Vali, and therefore he was searching to hide in every place. So he actually ended up traveling all over the place. And in one of the past videos, you've also shown that how they hopped on the east side and they reached South America, and different islands were there, and they reached Chile, and so it did happen. It reached South America, but today most of the Hindus in India, they say sometimes, and since yesterday I'm dealing with the Stockholm syndrome, I just say that they claim for everything. How did it happen? They disbelieve. They don't believe in it. And here we have Vanara, which you also explained in the last videos, how they're special type of human beings, Vanara, and they were able. They were very well versed in Vedic literature. They were intelligent, and we have Hanumanji from there, Kishkinda, Hampi. These are the places. Hampi is in Karnataka, and so they were able to guide. They were big pandits. So where is this mindset of poverty, poverty of intellect come in the mind of so many people who are actually supposed to be the great followers of Sanatana?
You, in this one question that you have framed, you have brought in many points actually. Each point is a subject of dissertation, but obviously we don't have that much time to do a full dissertation. We'll just touch on each of the topics so that our American friends can get a taste of each of this. Little bit, okay. And you said about the Sugriva's elder brother, Vali, the great king. The word Vali, also his name is not only said as Vali, but also quite often pronounced as Bali. So there's always a verb. Now today got the state of Bengal in the east of India. So Bengal also locally is also known as Vangal.
Bengal.
Actually, most other languages in India call it Vangal. It's only the Bengalis who call it Bengal because for them there's a verb interchanging happens. It's accepted in linguistics and it's the norm many places. Similarly, if you look at sari, which is what most of the Indians wear, Hindus wear, etc. In English, it's called sari, but in the local languages in India, it's called sadi. So again, there's a ra, da interchanging like that. So you look at Vali, he's also called Bali, and the word Bali comes from the word bal, strength. He's a very strong man. So he's a balwan, very strong. So bal is all about strength. That's why when you have Balrama, Krishna's elder brother, he is a strong Rama. So he is called Balrama, one who's the strength. So Bali was a strong, very strong man. And obviously there was a fight, a family fight between Bali and Sugriva. That is not the topic of this session. But obviously Sugriva was running away from Bali. Point. In Bali, he has a very special guna. characteristic when he goes to battle with somebody. That is, when he meets somebody face to face in a battle, he has a skill, Vali, to he attracts half the strength of the opponent to himself. So what happens is, even if you have two equal opponents, and Vali has got 100 units of strength and the opponent has got 100 units of strength, Sugriva, what happens is, Vali draws on the opponent's strength by 50%. So Vali's strength goes up by 150 to 150% and Sugriva's strength comes down to 50%. So obviously there's never going to be an equal battle with Vali. That is why earlier Vali had even defeated Ravana in a battle and sort of threw him out of the battlefield, literally threw him out of the battlefield, because even the mighty Ravana who gave torment to Rama and Sita was no match to Vali. Just what Vali himself tells Rama on his deathbed. If it was Ravana that you want, I could have easily got him for you, no big deal. So that was a strength. So Sugriva had this issue of he could never face Vali face to face. So he was always on the run. Somewhere, so that was the reason he had to be on the run. Well, Vali was the strong one. Let's look at the name of Sugriva. Su means nice. That's when you say Swagatam, welcome. You say Suswagatam, a nice welcome. When you add the prefix of Su, it means something even better, nicer. And Swagatam means welcome. Okay. Now Sugriva. So if you have the Su to Griva, what does the word Griva mean? Griva is a neck. So the one with a beautiful neck.
Beautiful neck.
Sugriva. The word Griva is used elsewhere too in the Hindu thought, Indian thought, and in the Indian legends. You have Hayagriva.
Before going to the other people with names as Griva, you can see that giraffe, the one with the long neck, giraffe, the griff, that kind of a sound, which denotes the neck. So giraffe, the animal with the long neck, Sugriva with a very nice neck. You can say it is just a neck from outside. You can also say that it is a neck that produces good words.
Sound.
So, good sounds, good.
So grief is also with that. So the same Griva, grief, giraffe, all that's got to do with the neck.
That's why you have Hayagriva. Haya means horse. One of the incarnations of Vishnu Avatara is the Hayagriva, and Haya means horse. So Hayagriva is the one with a horse head and a horse throat actually.
Horse neck.
But fundamentally the throat, because Hayagriva is connected with Veda chanting. He is the one who restores the Veda in the universe. So Hayagriva means a throat. So this is where you can understand that perhaps Sugriva also means one who speaks very well, a very good orator, because Hayagriva is the one who has chanted and recited the Veda and revived the Veda. So it is a throat that gave back the Veda to the world when it was lost. So Hayagriva, Sugriva. So every word in the Ramayana, everybody's name has a meaning. Rama means a comforter as well. So he is the one who gives delight, who comforts people. That is why people longed to look at Rama. So Sugriva is one who was a very good orator.
So taking from this, so he was hopping literally from place to place, even though he had this wonderful Griva, Sugriva, all that. And he was literally going, and he traveled over much of what was then known as Bharata Varsha, the whole Indian subcontinent and the islands around it, because he had to be away from his angry elder brother, who was the king then and who ruled the big area of the central India of those days. That's about many millennia ago. So that's why he hopping. Actually, when he guides, how do we come to know about the geography that Sugriva knows? Because when Rama, that is when Hanuman identifies Rama and Lakshmana and brings them to Sugriva, and then there's a friendship pact between Sugriva and Rama Lakshmana, of which Hanuman is the actual person who brings them together. What happens is, then Sugriva sends his people who are with him, his band of people, to different parts of to search for Sita's whereabouts. That is when he explains each part of the land, what to look for, where to look for, how do you know you're come to a part of a land? He tells. So that is when we really get to know, oh, this person, Sugriva, knows the landscape so well. Because then he says, that's when the point comes up, how? That's when he says, I have been to all these places because I have been looking out to know where all to safeguard myself. So that is where in the historical legend of Ramayana, we get to know how Sugriva has traveled all over and he knows the geography of the land. And this also gives us today, when we read Ramayana, especially about the narration of Sugriva, the whole expanse of geography of this land beautifully. For example, there was another big civilization down south, and he tells them it was called Kapadapuram. The way there's a big civilization up north, and then the central jungles of India, huge jungles which cover thousands of kilometers, thousands of miles. Then you had the southern civilization. And he tells that there's a golden gate of Kapadapuram. You go there, you meet the Pandya kings, and beyond that is what you have Lanka. So he explains. So he says the golden gate of Kapadapuram is what he says. Similarly, when you go to the Saraswati River, he tells the names of the tributaries of the Saraswati River in the northwest, that is in present-day Pakistan. So that's why he traveled all over. And not only he has traveled to Southeast Asia as well, he explains that those islands also. So it means traveled across the Bay of Bengal.
But from all this, what you get very nicely, what you get to see is not only is Ramayana a historical text, but it is also a geographically correct text. So the entire geography, as we know of it today, you can tally it with what is there in the Ramayana. And in fact, it gives you clues to what existed earlier, things that you don't see even today. So it gives you scope for a lot more research from a geography angle as well.
Actually, in our book, we have mapped this and said how Ramayana is a geographically correct text. So those who want, they can access the book. We can show you some slides if you want about how it's a geographically correct text. So if you can we share some slides?
Yes, please go ahead. Now, in Ramayana, actually Yudhishthir in Mahabharata quotes Ramayana, and people ask me all the time that why I bring Mahabharata in. But because in Mahabharata there is a small compilation of Ramayana too,
Yes.
and also Ramayana was a fairly well known during Mahabharata time also, when they used to teach the children. And one of the things
That
they
we will.
say, Saptadeepa and 7 islands, 13 islands and 7 islands and 13 small islands. So total 13 islands on the planet. And if you calculate today, there are 13 major islands on the planet. Very accurately put in Ramayana. Yes, go ahead.
Geography. See, every site that's visited by Rama or Sugriva, anybody, all these things are today, you can identify, verify, express them. So even though it was quite remote in the past, many millennia ago, 7 millennia ago, it is still identifiable today. That's the beauty of this geography, beauty of the land, and the beauty of the text. You very clearly see that that's one. And look at the pathway that Rama took 7,000 years ago, and the way he came down from Ayodhya, all the way from Ayodhya here, which was on the banks of the Sarayu River. He came down, crossed the Ganga River, where Guhad was the king of the boatsmen there, who brought them across to the south of the Ganga, and then where he walked and finally came this way. And this where it is Panchavati, and finally he comes to Kishkinda, Hampi, this region. So this is where he meets, in these forests that he meets Sugriva, and further comes down south with the army of Sugriva, and he crosses from the mainland of India, building a bridge called the Nala Setu then, which is now called the Rama Setu, and onto this and comes to Lanka to have the battle with the army of Ravana, and then goes back victorious all the way up to Ayodhya. So this is the pathway pretty much that he took, and the names of the places also mentioned, each one. This is there in our social media and website to watch. The same images there for all to watch. So it's a beautiful explanation of the path, how he traversed. And this is the place where Rama, Sugriva, Hanuman meet, and then this is where the explanation happens. That's one side of the story. And as Shri Aditya Satsangi just now said, there are many events in Mahabharata which speak about Ramayana. That is the beauty of it. We'll take one, two examples.
So actually, you just find that these two historical texts are corroborating one another. I mean, I would say rather the Mahabharata is corroborating the Ramayana, which clearly shows that, see, you don't find events of the Mahabharata in the Ramayana, whereas you find events of the Ramayana in the Mahabharata, which show that the Mahabharata had to have happened post the Ramayana events, and the Mahabharata actually corroborates the historicity of the Ramayana events.
We'll show you one or two examples in this, which will bring the fact out very nicely. Because in the Ramayana, what happens is, in Mahabharata, when all the Pandava princes and their wife Draupadi, they are in marine. Are you sharing this slide?
Yes, yes. Everyone can see your slides.
That's
Yeah, that's a flash player. Yes.
yeah, you can see that. What happens is, this is, you have to go to Ramayana. I'm sorry, you have to go to Ramayana. 1 second, just go to Ramayana. Talking about the bridge, the Rama Setu, the Nala Setu, there's a very interesting point here to note here that when we were researching on the Rama Setu, we came across this very interesting point. That is, Vedavyasa, Krishna Dvaipana, he himself writes that this bridge, Rama Setu, Nala Setu, over which they crossed from the mainland of Bharat to the island of Lanka, was maintained even today. That's 200 years, 2000 years after the times of Ramayana, into the times of Mahabharata, maintained. So there's a verse number and text which says that this Nala Setu being a protected monument during Mahabharata times. Look at this then. There is this Rishi Markandeya who writes in the Vanaparva of 20 chapters when he tells stories to the Pandava princes, Rishi Markandeya, because they were all in exile then, so in Vanvas. Then there's a conversation with Yudhishthira on the construction of the Nala Setu. That happened 2000 years earlier. And there's a full conversation. This is there in our book and film, where it says that, and the mighty army protected by Nala, Nila, and Angada and Krata. That is, Angada is the son of King Vali. And how they went about helping Raghava, that is Rama. And they camped and then they went through to the ocean. How they built the bridge. Ocean was also difficult to cross, and how they built the bridge to cross over of the crossing of the ocean and how they did it. So the construction of this wonderful structure, which is still surviving bridge on the sea from the mainland landmass to the island, is there even today as an archaeological monument. One can all see. So that this detailing is available in the explanation by Rishi Markandeya, that shows. And this we have also brought out in a film. And after this event of this explanation by Rishi Markandeya, what we see a very interesting episode is that Sahadeva, who we all know is one among the 5 brothers, Nakula, Sahadeva is the last. So what he does is, in the remaining years of the Vanvas, that's in exile, he travels down south to this Rama Setu. And he visits it along with Bhima's son Ghatotkacha. I'm sure those who have read the Mahabharata will be aware of the name Ghatotkacha. It's a huge, he is the son of Bhima and Hidimbi. So they both go down south, and he is a Rakshasa clan. Ghatotkacha belongs to the Rakshasa clan, whereas Sahadeva and Bhima belong to the Manava clan. So they go down south because there we have a animation of this and with the sea here. So Sahadeva visits south to see the Nala Setu and offer his prayers there because it was built by his ancestors. And Ghatotkacha says, that is, Sahadeva says he'll stay back at the Rameshwaram temple to do his prayers there. The Rameshwaram temple was built by Rama a couple of millennia ago. Whereas Ghatotkacha walks over the Nala Setu, walks into Lanka because he goes there to meet the descendants of Vibhishana, who, mind you, Vibhishana and his clan belong to the Rakshasa clan. As I earlier said, Ghatotkacha of the Rakshasa clan. So they are what?
Kins in that way.
They had a kinship. So Ghatotkacha walks over this bridge, which is about 30 kilometers in length, over into Lanka, meets the descendants of Vibhishana to have cordial relationship with them, and comes back again over the bridge and meets Sahadeva, who is doing his meditation at the Rameshwaram temple, and they both go back up north. This is during the Vanvas period. So this is very clearly explained in the Mahabharata, which chapters, everything explained here. So that clearly places that Mahabharata is 2 millennia after Ramayana. Is one other example we'll take now. See, this is very clearly in our book and our films that you can see. It's on YouTube. This film is there. You can see it. And we'll take one more example. This is a beautiful example, actually. Look at this. Can you all see our screens, please?
Yes.
Okay. We all know Hanuman. We call him as Vayu Putra.
Son of Vayu, wind,
Son of
the
Vayu.
divinity wind, for wind.
Okay, that's well known. We also call him Pavan Putra. So, Pavan, Maruti, because Marut, Maruti, Maruts, all that. So that is the common lineage. Now let's look at this.
And we know Hanuman is from the Rama period.
From the
So
Rama
because
period.
he's from the Ramayana times.
So his contemporaries, and it's about 5100 BCE. Later we come to Bhima. That is, he is the second brother among the 5 brothers. First is Yudhishthira, then Bhima, then third is Arjuna. Now Bhima is also referred to as Vayuputra. In Mahabharata is referred to as Vayuputra. So it's very clearly Bhima looks at Hanuman as his ancestor, noble predecessor. Actually, there is, because Hanuman being a Chiranjeevi is still around when Bhima is walking in the forest. And there is a meeting between Hanuman and Bhima. And actually, Hanuman is lying down and Bhima is crossing that path. And Bhima is supposed to be the strong word. Beam itself means very strong. The word beam itself means very strong.
Strong and fierce.
Fierce. Okay. And Bhima asks this person, this old person lying on the way, to get up and move out so he can continue with his path. What does this old man say lying down?
It's an old monkey with a tail. And
So old man is lying down there. So what does he do? He tells, okay, I'm too tired to move. I'm too old. But if you can move me out of the path, please do move me out of the path and you can walk along. Bhima, for all his strength, tries and tries and tries, but is not able to move. That Hanuman just doesn't budge, and Bhima is not able to move him by 1 inch or 1 millimeter. That's when he realizes that this person has got far superior strength to Bhima the Great himself. That's when he realizes who it is. It is his illustrious predecessor, Hanuman. The venerable old man is his predecessor, Hanuman. So that is how you see the lineage. And look, let's look at something even more interesting now. This is all in the far past, 5,000 years ago, 7,000 years ago. Let's come down to something that is about 800 years ago. See, we have 3 main parampara in the Hindu thought in this land. One is Adi Shankara, which is Advaita. Second is Ramanujacharya, Visishta Advaita. It's also Advaita, non-dualism, but
refined
non-dualism. And the third is Dvaita. So there is 2. So the divine and us, the people who are here on this earth. So that is the dualism. And this dualism, this Dvaita philosophy was the proponent. It already existed before him, but the proponent was Sri Madhvacharya. in Udupi. The famous Krishna temple is in Udupi. So he is there. He is the person who found the idol, consecrated the Vigraha, and it's been there since then for the last 800 years. And he very clearly says he is a Vayuputra. And there he says 4,300 years prior to his time was the other Vayuputra, Bhima. So that helps you place Mahabharata also from the perspective of Madhvacharya very clearly. So that places the text of Mahabharata very clearly from the parampara of Madhvacharya.
So 800 years ago, the learned wise men of India, they also could relate to the time period of Mahabharata, call it historical. They saw it as, while they prayed and they were filled with all the devotion, they could see the divine. On the other hand, they also recognized the historicity. They could give a time frame to that historicity as well, which falls around the
well
3000.
within the window of the 3100 BCE window, falls beautifully within that. See, this is a statement, independent statement from independent text, you get that. So that clearly places Hanuman, Bhima, and Sri Madhvacharya in that one illustrious lineage.
So you can see a sequence, from a timing perspective, you can see how the events have happened one after the other.
Then we'll take one more incident in Mahabharata. This is again one more incident in Mahabharata that we'll see. It's a beautiful incident. It's related to flags. And we call the flags in India as Dwaja. Dwaja. Okay. The way Krishna has a conch, it's called Panchajanya. They also all have a specific Dwaja with them. And Arjuna the Great, he also has a Dwaja. What is his Dwaja? A Vanara Dwaja of Hanuman. So he looks, even though it is he held up to the Bhima, who is a Vayuputra, it is Arjuna, the sibling of Bhima, who has Hanuman's Vanara Dwaja as his Dwaja. Look at the interesting connect. It's beautiful. So when they go to battle, here you very clearly see the Vanara Dwaja there.
So this very clearly places Mahabharata post the Ramayana. So post Hanuman's period, it very clearly says that Mahabharata happened after Hanuman's times and Rama's times.
Similarly, let's look at an example from Vayu Purana.
So I have one question. One question I have, and it's put up by the audience actually. So when we show these kind of heroes in the text, ancient text of India, but today if you look at the Indians, and I'm sure this experience is coming from the American experience, that Hindus are very docile. Like we'll never see some kind of initiative or strength, which is shown in Indian scriptures. Was that an exaggeration? And this is just it's not my question, it's a question from the audience. Because I tell the audience that what Indians you see in the US are from middle class and people who have left India because they wanted to earn money. That's a very simple logic. And they may not be belonging to any warrior class or something. So it's a different kind of Indian you see who comes to US. But if you go to India, the people are very tall and very strong if you go to there, many parts of India, because that's how the Indian army recruits. Nobody is less than 6 feet, or the tall people they recruit. And so that's the difference. So can you answer that question for the audience, please?
Sure. Krishna himself has said, Karmani vadikarastu mafalina kadachana. So you are going for a particular task. If you are in your Janma Bhumi, then your job is to defend your Janma Bhumi, where you have the Kshatriya Bhava to defend. When you are going to a new land, you are going for a couple of purposes. One is to educate yourself, because you're going there, you had some basic education, you're going to further upskill your education. So then you are going to So your focus is very clearly, first few years is education, skilling yourself properly and getting the correct. So that is your goal there. Your goal is not to look outside that. You're going there for a purpose. You have been brought up in a particular household. The land has been unfortunately continuously attacked for a millennia, and you're trying to find ways to come out of that and progress. So your goal is not to go and be offensive in a land that offered you, called you for higher education. You go there to study. Once you have done your studies in the land that has called you and offered you, what do? Then you excel yourself. You and your families excel yourself in that land. Only after you have established yourself and made that also your land. It is a generation that the second and third generation who are part of that bhumi, then their Matrubhumi is the land of Americas. They join the forces. And because it's then the land of Bharata, India is not their Matrubhumi. It is the Matrubhumi of their parents or their grandparents. Send the focus shifts. So it's very clearly what you go for, where you go, do that. When the Indians went to Fiji or West Indies or whichever part, they went on a particular role. The subsequent generations they evolved. So there is a role to play. For example, when Rishi Kaundinya went to Southeast Asia, from which comes Cambodia, he had a role to play and then he developed on that role. Then we heard the Suryavarman, all the kings who were great kings of the land who defended their land, their offspring. Similarly, you have the Kim dynasty in South Korea. The queen who went there, Kim Suro, she married, said, it's her children who developed. So you need to say, when you go to a particular place, focus on that. Do well in that. So these first few generations that are going, they have a role to play. They have a goal to achieve. They have to say, yes, we have come to a new pasture and we have made it good here. So their role is not to be belligerent. That is a fundamental ethos. It's not to be belligerent later also. It is to do your role. It's as per the pathway that Krishna has given to us. Do your role. Do your duty. Your duty there is to do well. Is not to show your bravado. That's false bravado there. Then that becomes your Matrubhumi. When you are born in that new world, the new land, that is your Matrubhumi. Then you fight for the rights of your Matrubhumi. Your Matrubhumi is not Bharatvarsha, the second, third generation. Those who are born in America. The first two generations focus very clearly.
Matrubhumi, motherland.
Which is your motherland. I hope I have answered that point to some extent.
Yeah, I think the media has portrayed most of the Indians as laptop repairers and the software guys who are working on the punching some keyboards. And I think that's a representation the media has made generally. But it's a good image also to have that very peaceful community.
It's one of the largest armies of the world as well.
It is a large, huge, humongous army. It's like very industrious ants.
Yeah.
So while we have the army of software professionals, we also have the real, brave army, the hardcore army as well.
We have that. The Indian army is one of the Indian army is a very successful, strong army, and it's been a very successful, strong army through the millennia. Through all the onslaughts that the land faced for 1,000 years, it was never fully conquered. Yes, it was conquered in portions, in parts. Repeatedly, they came back. So that strength has been there. Even the colonizers never conquered the land of India fully. They could only conquer in bits and pieces here and there. The rest were all with the local kings, over which they had some amount of control, not total control. So there was a lot of independence, a lot of people in this land. So there's a lot of personal valor strength that this land has continuously has had. Right? The different parts of the land. Because it's a huge land. It's not a small
even
island or patch of land.
Yeah, even the land of Persia, which we call it, it's a Sanskrit name, Parsik. So Parsik is the name, and after the Islamic looters or whatever conquered it, it became to be known as Iran. but it was a Parsi. It was a very well known to India, and the word Persians was named by the Greeks. So just that's these are all media misconceptions, but that's the purpose of this show. There's a lot of mythology out there, which has been falsely created by the faith-based colonialists. But we have this is a real history we have, which Hema Hari and DK Hari are showing that how so many years, that time people did not know alphabets in the Western countries, and here we have documented history. So please go ahead with the slide presentation you have.
So here we have this concept of yuga. Yuga is about the years. So there are different types of calculation yuga. Yuga is an alignment basically.
Yeah, so fundamentally the word yuga, which is the term that has been used to describe the time windows when Ramayana took place and when Mahabharata took place, the time window is described as yuga. It's a close equivalent to understand could be something like an epoch. Now, the yuga, the epoch when Ramayana took place is called the Treta Yuga, is known as the Treta Yuga, and the Mahabharata is placed in the Dwapara Yuga. Now, if you look at when these yuga could have occurred, and I mean, what is the time span? It is not exactly an equal time span. All the epochs are not equal. You have cycles of four, where the first one is Krita, which is about 4,000 years long. Then you have Treta, which is 3,000, then Dwapara, which is 2,000, and Kali, which is 1,000 years. And totally it comes to 10, but then, and that's 4, 3, 2, 1. So when you sum it up, it comes to 10,000.
It's a nice ratio. This 4, 3, 2, 1 is a wonderful ratio and repeats everywhere in nature as well. It repeats in different aspects of nature, this 4, 3, 2, 1, which adds up to 10. So it's again multiples of 10.
And in this kind of a yuga description, where they define independently, I mean, irrespective of Ramayana and Mahabharata, they are not concerned about that. Here you have separate literature which talk about, and in that you find yugas are listed in this order as Krita, Treta, Dwapara, and then Kali. So when you look at Ramayana, and independently when you find Ramayana is in Treta and Mahabharata is in Dwapara, you can very clearly see the flow of history, the flow of historical events of this land, where you find Ramayana first, and then you have Mahabharata having occurred later. So that is the course that history has taken.
We'll just show you a snippet from a film as well as from a book where this data is available for those who want to sort of refer to it later. We have a film, and it's there in a book also, which you want to show. There's a film that we made called Historical Rama. Look at this in this film. That's me. That was shot about 10 years ago. So it's a much younger me.
You look the same now. Yeah, I think the age has stopped. We can't hear the sound.
In one of the stories,
I
tells
just
him
shared
about Nala Setu, how it was built by Nala, and being in Setu.
civilization.
Pertinent to bring in an observation from the Mahabharata text.
When the Pandava princes were traveling through the forest, they came across Rishi Markandeya, who regales them with stories of their land. In one of the stories, he tells them about Nala Setu, how it was built by Nala, and being an engineering marvel, it was a protected monument of their times.
What does the Setu symbolize to us today? That is one. And this we also have shown it in a different way in our book, Historical Rama, which is available for read in Kindle now for all. The same points as, similar points is mentioned there.
So they can always go back and check this out here. All this about the Markandeya Purana, the incident and how he regales them with the stories. And this is how the bridge looks today. And this is how they are supposed to have flown in the Pushpak Viman.
The whole text is there. See what I had earlier just read, the headline points, the whole text is there. The detailing is there. This is all available for read in our book, Historical Rama.
See, these are very interesting points actually here. So the Mahabharata actually reinforces Ramayana. It tells how the events had happened definitely, how they had happened earlier, how this bridge was venerated as a civil engineering marvel even during Mahabharata period. That is 2000 years after Rama's times. So people had guarded, protected, and kept that monument. They had looked after it even after Rama's period, and that the way it was constructed was all part of the folklore. It was being told, which is why Rishi Markandeya tells it to the Pandava princes also.
It was told and retold, generation after generation. Parampara. That's why you get the word parampara.
It's very funny. In late 1800s, this same bridge was known as Adam's Bridge, and today many Islamists claim it, and many Christians claim it, and very many Jews claim it.
It's in the same film we explain why it's called Adam's Bridge. In the same film which is on YouTube, we explain why it's called Adam's Bridge.
It's a British engineer who named it.
No. There was I explained to you. No, if you go a little back.
Yeah,
little
actually,
back.
yeah.
Here, little back. The same film we show it there somewhere.
Yeah, now is when he tells about the Nala.
Okay, this film is available on YouTube for all to watch.
So my question to you will be that the
has found mention in various historical records over the last 1,000 years in various forms such as travelogues, coins, and maps. Both Indian and Sri Lankan coins have mentioned about the Setu. In fact, from 1400 CE onwards, the Yalpana Arya Chakravarti kings of present-day Jaffna in northeast Sri Lanka regularly minted coins embossing the name Setu on it in their Tamil language. These kings considered themselves as Setu Kavalan, or the guardians of this bridge. On the Indian side, the Ramnad king still has the title Setupati, indicating that he is the guardian of the bridge on this side of the land. When the Europeans came here, they prepared the maps of this land. James Rennell was the first European cartographer of India. In his maps, he clearly shows this as Adam's Bridge. On the Sri Lankan side, the Dutch maps show it as Adam's Brug, and the Sri Lankan copper plates also show the same. Many travelers have visited this area in the last 1,000 years. They have mentioned about this bridge in their travelogues. Many travelers have visited this area in the last 1,000 years. They have mentioned about this bridge in their travelogues. The foremost among them is Al-Biruni, who has mentioned it in his magnum opus Persian book Kitabul Hind. In this book, in pages 92 to 102, he calls this region of the bridge the Dikya of Rama, or the direction of Rama. He further goes on to call Rama as the son of Dasharatha, going to show the belief in the historicity of Rama even way back in early 1000 CE. Al-Biruni also gives detailed description of other geographical locations mentioned in Ramayana, such as Kishkinda. Marco Polo, who travelled over much of Asia, also seems to have gone past Rama Setu en route to reaching Malabar. He mentions Rama Setu in his book. Vartema, who travelled all over Arabia, Central Asia and India, also specifically mentions about this bridge of Rama. Like these three, over the next 700 years till date, many travellers have visited this region and have mentioned this bridge. This goes to show its historicity because of its repeated mention. In 1902, C.D. McLean, in his Manual of Administration of Madras Presidency, mentions that this Rama's bridge was a walking bridge continuously used by the people for thousands of years till it was washed away in 1480 by a major storm. Post the storm, this bridge became dilapidated and unusable. All these facts have been brought out in the Ramanathapuram Gazetteer of 1972.
We actually show how it gets the name Adam's Bridge. It's there in the film anyway. destroying. It's after the construction.
Okay, what happened was, okay, it's there in the film for all to watch. There was a Islamic preacher by name Adam who walked over this bridge and went to Lanka to preach his thought of Islam. So, since his name was Adam, for the Islamic people in the land of Lanka, this person for them, their first teacher to walk over was Adam, so they called it Adam Bridge. And when the Dutch and the Portuguese and all that, they came to Lanka, for them, instead of calling it Nala Setu or Rama's Bridge, the name Adam and Adam was similar for them. So for them to pronounce it in their tongue. So they immediately called it Adam's Bridge. So that is how from Adam it became Adam's Bridge for them. Okay.
Won't the Indian government would like to call it, because it's about cultural attacks. Can they oppose it, and all the Indian maps they start calling it Nal Setu, and also global maps also in the Google Maps they should question them to call it with the original name, because
Rama here, look at this particular dialogue here, little back. Look at this dialogue here.
Against the bridge. Probably Nala, the engineer, had understood this pore pressure concept and had incorporated it in the bridge design. After the victorious battle with Ravana, while returning with Sita to Ayodhya in the Pushpak Vimana, they fly over this bridge. Rama then points this bridge to Sita and states as to how difficult it was for them to construct, and how it was only Nala, the engineer par excellence, who could execute it, and Rama calls it Nala Setu.
Over the last few minutes, we have seen with a certain clarity and a detailed understanding how this bridge is a civil engineering marvel as explained in the text, a man-made accretion over a natural seerage.
When did this Nala Setu come to be called Adam's Bridge? The bridge was originally called Nala Setu, as we have seen. Later the people, out of their admiration and veneration for Rama, started calling it Rama Setu, and later it also got the name Setu Bandha, that which joins two lands. This has been a walking bridge for many millennia. During the course of its early usage, one of the early Islamic religious leaders of Sri Lanka walked over this bridge and reached Lanka to do penance there. Since he was the early Islamic man, he was called Adam by the Sri Lankan Muslims. When the Europeans came to this part of the world, they could easily correlate to the name Adam, and they started calling it Adam's Bridge in their records, and the name stayed.
So that is how actually Rama himself, like you said, he calls it Nala Setu. And yes, it is time that we restored the name back to Nala Setu itself.
That's why in our film and our books we repeatedly call it Nala Setu. That's how you get to the name, you recover the name which was originally given, and that's how you respect the original architects and engineers who actually built it.
The story is very interesting as to how the Nala Neela brothers actually they built that bridge, and all that they have done, you can very easily map it to how an engineering project would have been carried out today. The various steps that they go through and how they build it and how they talk about their credentials. They say they are engineers. In fact, they are descendant of the Vishwakarma, the Mayasura clan. I mean, they talk about how they are descendants from the clan of Vishwakarma, who are architects.
And they offer themselves, their services to their king Sugriva to build this bridge. So that is how it happens. So there is a problem on hand to cross the oceans, and these two are part of the entourage. They stand up, put their hands up and offer their services to their king Sugriva.
So it comes back to Sugriva, I guess.
So the bridge was created for military purposes to cross over the
Absolutely.
large armies. So So if people have any doubts, then India has a martial tradition for a very long time. And earlier you marked also that Indian army is the only volunteer army of the whole world, and it's the largest army, not bigger than Chinese also in many ways, and better equipped to some extent. But still, the bridge was made for military purposes only.
Yes, yes, very much so.
So the first, the before the British or any of the, now there is another misconception that everyone from the Europe went out to search for India to practically loot or control. And you see that most of them, they reached India, they got converted. They did not convert much, but they got converted. Even though they did destroy the education system of India since 1920s through the education policy, but still most of them were converted. And then I can tell you one thing, that even today more people, they try to uh, when they go to India, there are only two effects: either they get impressed or they completely reject for material reasons only. But as far as the culture goes, they get completely impressed by India. So DK, one question I
We
have
can
for,
discuss that in the one of the future sessions. You can discuss in detail
yes,
because we have enough inputs on that to discuss separately.
Actually,
We can do that in the next session if you want. What you said, no, there's a statement by a person by name James Mill and Charles Grant. That will take at least 10 minutes. Already well crossed over an hour now. So probably the next session we can show it to you. It's there in a film and a book.
it is
perfect.
very true that they were getting converted, and they themselves used the word that the British officers coming to India are getting Brahminized. So they say that,
They use the phrase. They use the phrase.
because they come, they get
They get
impressed by the
Hinduized.
knowledge, and then they start learning.
Why? So there's a
The
process. We'll explain it in one of the future sessions.
Absolutely. In South America, if you go to Chile and other places, there is a natural attraction for India. In Indian government doesn't have to do much. Ramayana and Mahabharata, they've already done it. So, so there is no need to any campaigns, because we have the two very large documented histories, which they already do it. So there is no need for, sometimes there is a need nowadays also, the duck which the which quacks the loudest gets a cracker. That's the Western philosophy. So we don't have to quack much. This already been done. Well done.
Very true.
it's a millennial old connect. I mean, I think the vibes are still there, while the physical connect has gone, and it's time we revived. And now, with all the possibility of travel and everything, and forget travel, even online meetings,
We
I think
should
we
revive the
should
connect.
revive all these connects.
Because, as you say, it is now Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. It's a global village. It's a total online village. And it is high time that through such forums, we connect back with different facets of these civilizations and see the commonality factors beautifully.
See, the reason is these millennial old connects that were there, that show that the people here on these both sides of these lands would have had the same principles of living, and that is something that we'll have to bring back, the Indian kind of principles, which would have resonated with the Americas of those days, and these have to come back again, if we want to really look at a world that is more sustainable, with less of greed, avarice, and all of those other kind of extreme feelings, a much more balanced, tempered world. I think we'll have to kind of stir up all these
No, you are doing it for
thoughts
a
and
long
ideals.
time. You're doing it for 20 years, more than that. And I think great teachers like Prabhupada and other people, Vivekanand, have done a great service to this land also, America also. Now, coming to, and not to forget Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and which is local to us here, Oceanside. And so there are a lot of people who have come and who have shared, but the 25% of all refugees coming from Middle Eastern countries, most of them are they've left their faith, and for them this is a golden opportunity to regain values. because I think it's not about just these stories, but the character of Ram, character of Hanuman, Sugriva. It teaches a lot to the humanity in a big way. So people may doubt the dates, but cannot miss the message, and also the archaeological evidences they cannot miss, and also astronomical evidences, which are far more accurate than any geographical. But it is so surprising to see the accurate descriptions of geography existing at that time. It just puts to shame all the European travelers. They were just chewing the chewed. It's already been done. So they did not find anything new. In fact, Columbus' discovery of America is connected with 100 million people genocided by them through Columbian exchange and other things. None of the Indian travelers did that. None of the Chinese travelers did that. They just saw the land, recorded it, and that's about it. But nobody went there to occupy and destroy the local cultures. Now, if you go to Brazil and other countries, they don't show their history before the Portuguese kings. So their ancestors, they claim to be Portuguese, which is totally not true. With the modern day, any intelligent Brazilian or any intelligent South American will not claim that. And the fake stories imported of the imposed of the Juan Diego. Juan Diego is John Doe, like John Doe in US. Any common man, if you don't know the name, you call him John Doe. In India, you call them Ram Bharose. so, so, so Juan Diego is one such character, Ram Bharose type of character, which actually doesn't exist. It's just a name we have given because we don't know the name.
Bliss. Yeah, yeah.
So which is going on. So I think viewers, you have learned a lot in this show from DK Hari, Hemari. I really want to thank them for coming. They have very busy time, very precious time of theirs. They do a lot of service for other people all over the world and free of charge. So if you want to support them, you go to Bharat, BHARATHGYAN.com, and support their services, because it ultimately needs money and wealth also to serve dharma. So they are serving dharma, but still they need dhan. So on my behalf, on Sattology behalf, we appeal for that. And for viewers for watching it, and so many of you joined to watch this show, thank you so much. And I hope we'll come back with a new topic which GK Hari himself suggested. We'll do the next show on that. So keep looking out for that very shortly. Until then, namaskar and Jai Shri Ram. Happy Diwali.
Jai Shri Ram.